This an all-out blitz, real hard hits, them other podcast trash, we gon' make them all quit. We cover all the topics with intelligence and logic. I know you wanna score, but ID gon' stop it. We from Texas, so that mean that we Texans. Breaking down the X's and O's, our profession. No complaining, just training, you see the progression. They had a Pro Bowl for talk shows, we get selected. We gon' celebrate every win like a birthday. Ray J with the news, first with all the updates. Spin move on the competition, yeah, we juking them. You not really in touch if you not tuning in. This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown, we not trying to go for 3. And it's best if you get up out the street, cause them bulls out the pen and they bout to stampede.
Hey guys, this episode is sponsored to you by Tomorrow's Retro, made by die-hard fans giving you all the Texan gear and pride you deserve. Retro look, tomorrow's superstars. Get the best looking merch for your Houston Texans. Use code TFB10 for 10% off store-wide savings. You can go to tomorrowsretro.myshopify.com. And let's get to the episode. We have a great guest tonight. It's Aaron Wilson. We're going to be talking about all of the trades that went on through the NFL, the Texans news. Welcome to the Texans Fan Battle Podcast. I'm your host tonight, Brown Chubby Bear, also known as VD, and we have Aaron Wilson. So, Aaron, let's just get into it with the NFL news. So do you want to start just giving us a summary of what happened throughout the NFL and what are the most impactful trades you believe that actually occurred?
Right. I think Montez Sweat, for all of the hype, and if you go and look back at a lot of the reporting and people saying this will happen or that will happen, a lot of it didn't happen, didn't come true. So, it always takes two to tango, and the NFL trade deadline is really emblematic of that fact. You think about the Chase Young trade. Chase is a player that a lot of teams had concerns about his health. I think, with Montez Sweat, it's about signability, and he indicated that he wanted to be sure before he commits to the Chicago Bears that he's comfortable with what's going on around him. And I think they could have a coaching change at some point with Matt Eberflus. So we'll see. Stay tuned on that one. And then you look at Jalen Johnson. He wanted to be traded from the Bears. His financial demands were so outrageous, BT, that other teams did not want to entertain a trade. He had permission to seek one, didn't get anywhere. Brian Burns was really unavailable for trade from the Panthers. They had no intentions of trading him. So I'm not sure why there was so much talk. And I would just say for anyone out there, I know a lot of people like to get their hopes up or they get excited about a player. The Texans just had 6 sacks and 10 quarterback hits, which I was there in Charlotte, was a lot more production than Brian Burns had. So, re-signing a Jonathan Grenard, something like that might be a good move. And, Will Anderson Jr., he's just going to keep getting better. Sometimes the best players you have for your system are in your own building. So I understand why Vic Caserio did not make a trade. And people were griping about that, and they forget he had already traded for Shaq Mason, Kendrick Green, and Josh Jones. So he's pulled off plenty of trades, and he did the Brandon Cooks trade, getting rid of Brandon, getting draft capital earlier in the year. So he's not averse to trading. This just didn't feel like the right time. And I thought D'Amico Ryans really answered that question very well today about the trade deadline, and ultimately there wasn't something there for them this time. But maybe in the future there will be.
So the one trade and it's the only one that really annoyed me, was the Ezra Cleveland trade. First of all, Ezra Cleveland, left guard, for those that know, is a left guard. He's good both in pass protection as well as run blocking. He's only let up 1 sack this entire year. He's well-versed in both zone and gap. And the Jaguars got him for a 6th-round pick. And the reason why I was upset with that is because if you look at this line, a lot of it obviously had to do with injuries, but Titus is out there at left guard. And although he's serviceable in pass protection, he's not very good at all in run blocking, particularly when they're trying to pull him. And so I thought that getting Ezra Cleveland would have solved that. You would have been able to move Titus back out to right tackle. You would have solved your left guard problem, and then you only were stuck with an issue at center, and then hopefully Scruggs comes back, which we'll talk to about injuries in just a moment. But when he comes back, your line is pretty good. So can you tell me why you think that they didn't go after Ezra Cleveland?
They probably didn't think he was as good as you think Ezra Cleveland is. I would say that.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they think that Titus Howard's a better football player. And the whole scenario of, for everyone that wants Titus Howard to play right tackle, ignores something else that's going on here, is that George Fant is having an excellent season. Who's to say that George Fant isn't playing better at right tackle, perhaps, or at the same level that Titus Howard played it before? I think that George is making himself some money over there with how he's performing on the right side. So I would, venture to say, could everything change if George goes to free agency and leaves? Yeah, maybe then Titus goes back to his right tackle spot. Maybe next year it's Josh Jones, Kendrick Green, or someone else, or Kenyon Green. Can't completely rule him out. That maybe he'll improve and get healthy. But for right now, I think it'll be someone that's less expensive is their next left guard, and that's only if Fant doesn't come back. Yeah, for Titus, sometimes when you watch those plays, it looks like it's all one guy, and we don't know what the play is, or who's supposed to do what, or whether the running back, or whether the timing of the play is completely off, or the penetration in the backfield causes the missed block. But yeah, I think that pulling is not his strongest suit. I think that's accurate. Yeah, I like him in more straightforward running plays.
All right. So obviously, I don't think as highly of George Fant, particularly in run blocking situations. And that's particularly when, whenever they try to run stretch on the outside and stuff, I don't see him performing well there. But I guess, if they value Fant that highly, then I guess I can understand that. Right now, when I look at the line, I'm seeing issues when they're trying to run up the gut with left guard. And I obviously know that when people are yelling about Titus Howard, that's not his natural position. That's not why we paid him $18.5 million a year. And so to me, this would have solved it. But I can understand that. But let's get into some injury news, because everyone is obviously want to get some updates here, because we have lots and lots of players that have been out. For a while, we were the number one team that had players on IR. So let's get to it. You sent out a tweet about Jaret Patterson. So let's start there. What's the update with Jaret Patterson?
All right. They did two opinions on Jaret Patterson, and the second opinion has confirmed this diagnosis, that he broke his fibula. The fibula is a non-weight-bearing bone that is connected to your ankle. It supports your ankle. It's in the area of the ankle. It's right above the ankle. It is a non-weight-bearing bone, and the good news is he will avoid surgery. And the best case scenario is a 6 to 8 week recovery. But when I say 6 to 8 weeks, that doesn't necessarily mean 6 to 8 weeks and you're returning to play.
Right.
We're talking about returning to normal function. So in all likelihood, a season-ending injury, but we'll see what happens. I think a lot of people misunderstand what that means by recovery. It's not when you can play, it's when you can start doing some things and getting closer to playing. And there's a big difference between being able to practice or have some physical activity and playing in an actual game. And there's always a ramp-up period for any player that's had an injury. They normally like you to practice, if you've been out a long time, a couple of weeks before they let you play. So yeah, Jaret Patterson, as I reported, had a fracture, not a high ankle sprain, for some of our doctors in our medical community and some of our fan bloggers. I would just say, don't doubt me, because I know what I'm doing.
I also just want to interrupt this quick and just say, Matt, hope you're feeling better. Yes, you're definitely a better looking close than me. Pause. Hopefully you're back here next Wednesday. So you see this right up on the screen. I would like to get the injury updates for every player. So if you want to, can you just go through the list that you see on the screen?
Yep, I'll do them rapid fire.
Cool.
Sheldon Rankins, knee much better. As I reported last week, he's on track to play against the Buccaneers. So he practiced today, felt good. He told me he plans to play on Sunday. I believe that is absolutely accurate, that he will play on Sunday. You just took your graphic off, though. There you go. Thank you. I don't have my glasses on, so I'm sorry if I'm squinting a little bit. Tegan Quitoriano injured his groin. He's out at least 4 weeks, not just because of the injury reserve, like the minimum 4 weeks, but it's like a month-long injury.
Okay.
Brevin Jordan has a foot injury. He's dealing with plantar fasciitis, which is a painful injury, and he is currently unable to practice, and I believe he will miss this game. Robert Woods is set to miss this game with a foot injury. He was in a walking boot during the bye week. He is making some progress. He is not able to practice yet, so he is set to miss another game. Juice Scruggs, I get a lot of questions about Juice. Juice has a hamstring injury that has lingered, been a little more severe. It's probably a couple of weeks before he can play. And so he's not ready to practice yet, so it won't be this week, obviously. And then even if he did practice next week, he wouldn't be able to play. So it would be a couple of weeks. So right now, Michael Dieter is the center. And then let's see, who else you have down here? Derek Stingley Jr. Derek Stingley Jr. is on a long-term timetable. It will be longer than the 8 weeks. I think it could be as long as 10 weeks. And they'll be very careful with the hamstring. They will exercise extreme caution to avoid him aggravating the injury. I know someone else had said it was 4 weeks initially. You probably remember who said that. No name drops, but I always said it would be a lengthy injury, and it is going to be a lengthy injury. So, anyway,
and then the last one was Dameon Pierce.
Yeah, reported before the injury report that Dameon has an ankle injury. He was getting treatment throughout the day. He is right now, hoping to play. There is some hope internally within the building that he might be able to play. His status is still being determined for Sunday, and it is really iffy on whether he's going to play or not. I was told that one thing they're contemplating is whether a week off would allow the ankle to heal pretty well, and if playing would aggravate it. So that is a concern. So that decision is not made yet as of this broadcast time on Dameon Pierce, who I thought had a solid game against the Panthers. He just probably didn't get the ball enough. And as CJ said it today, they still need to run the ball better because there were a lot of yards to be had. The strategy last game was to run the football and to throw underneath because of the deep shell defense the Panthers like to run, and it didn't work. So they've got to run the ball better. As you said, it's got to be blocked better, and it's also going to be run better. And I thought that they were deficient in that area, even though they had good yards. They were playing in such a bad run defense. It should have been much more prolific.
Okay. And so we got some other injury news here talking about the run game. We added running back J.J. Taylor to the practice squad. He hasn't done much in his career. He's been mostly on practice squads, but he has played. And I just wanted to ask you, do you think there's a chance that he actually gets elevated and sees any touches this weekend?
I don't think that will happen.
Okay.
I don't think they've ever signed a guy to the practice squad and then they played a few days later. No, I don't foresee that scenario at all. Jason Verrett, who's a very established corner and had been out a while, joined the practice squad weeks ago, and he's inactive every week. I think that, I met JJ today. He is a shorter back at 5'5", 185. He's been training up in the New England area and also back in his home state of California. Really decorated football player at University of Arizona, former offensive freshman of the year in the Pac-12, former all Pac-12 selection. And he does have a little bit of production. He's played in some games and had some return yards. He has 114 return yards. He's had some catches. He's had some good runs. I think he's a nice player. But, the backs on Sunday, if there is no improvement for Dameon Pierce, Devin Singletary and Mike Boone, I think they'll be fine with those two backs.
All right. And so someone's asking about a tight end signing. So was there any talk about a tight end with having TQ out and Brevin out?
They did sign. They talked about it and they did it. They signed Eric Saubert, a tight end off of the Dallas Cowboys practice squad. He's on the Texans 53-man roster, and they're trying to get him ready to play on Sunday. But he's on the active roster. And with Brevin Jordan and Teagan out, the only tight ends they have right now are Dalton Schultz, Eric Saubert, and they have Dalton Keene on the practice squad. I think Dalton will be elevated, and they don't want to have to move Andrew Beck to tight end from fullback. So that's your three tight ends: Saubert, Schultz, and Keene.
So we don't have a backup fullback, right? At this point. So I mean, if Andrew Beck isn't
If
fullback,
something
what
happened
happens?
to him, you do have a backup fullback, actually. Do you remember in the preseason against the Patriots when Dalton played fullback? It's when
Oh,
it's when
okay.
Andrew was absent for a personal issue.
Gotcha.
It was a it was
Gotcha.
a, it was a personal family thing, and yeah, he missed time. And Dalton played against his old team, the Patriots, and he played well.
Okay. Okay. You're right. You're right. So some more questions that have been going on Twitter and Facebook. Is Josh Jones healthy? And obviously you answered this question kind of. Why isn't he playing left guard? But a lot of people are asking, like, why do they not see Josh Jones as left guard? Because they spend assets on him, right? So what's up with Josh Jones?
Josh Jones tore his thumb ligament. He had surgery on it. That's why he was in a cast for a couple of weeks, and that took him out of the equation. And then Titus Howard came back, who they have a huge investment in. He's a former first-round draft pick, signed to a giant contract, and that put Josh on the bench. Josh did run with the ones today at left tackle because they had a day off for Laramie Tunsil. So yeah, they had Josh with the ones today, but he won't be with the ones on Sunday. Laramie Tunsil will, and Titus will be the left guard. And to answer your question more thoroughly, I mean, he didn't play great at left tackle. If you think back to the Colts game, he had a pretty rough game, and I think he does have some upside as a guard. I thought he was better at guard than tackle, but yeah, left tackle, it didn't run that smooth, and they wound up going in a different direction. But I mean, this was always he was acquired for depth, not to be a starter.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So that answers that question. And another question: did teams call about Davis Mills or Case Keenum with the quarterback injuries we've seen, like with the Vikings? Did they have any calls?
They've been unavailable the entire time. I don't know why. I don't like to do this too often to dunk on reporters, but yeah, there have been some that have been talking about this for a while. There's absolutely nothing there.
Okay.
It's just there's no action. I don't know why everyone thinks there's all these things that are going on and secrets, and it's not that complicated.
So there was some talk that we were trying to make.
I reported that in the spring. The whole time that Davis was unavailable.
You did. You actually said that on this show that there were calls.
Yeah, but that's right. I did. Yeah.
But they said no. So just to kind of silence everyone else. So there's a lot of talk that Nick Cassera did try to make a big move for the D line, but it didn't work out. Is there any truth to that?
I haven't heard anything that's true. I haven't heard anything like that. I think what D'Amico said was accurate today, that they were not very active, that this wasn't their year to do it.
Okay. All right. And
I know exactly who you're talking about too.
I'm sure you do. Is there any other update that we didn't cover that you think the fans should know?
I think that this probably has gotten a little bit blown out of proportion a little bit on Texans Twitter, social media. CJ Stroud wasn't the only person that was dissatisfied with what they did on offense, but I think there were legitimate reasons for that. When D'Amico Ryan said that people are figuring us out, I think that was a very honest comment after the game, that people are starting to adjust to the Texans. So they've got to adjust to the adjustment.
Correct.
And you got to remember, you have a rookie quarterback, rookie head coach, rookie offensive coordinator. These other gentlemen are very good coaches. They study the tape, and they make their own adjustments. And there'll be adjustments this week that the Texans need to make to a team that is blitzing at the third, maybe it's fifth now, highest rate in the NFL, the Buccaneers. They were third highest, I think, heading into the last game, a batch of Sunday games. So they're going to bring blitzes, unusual blitzes. They have a new center in Michael Dieter. They have Vita Vea, who's absolute super heavyweight monster over center, one of the best nose tackles in the entire league. And that's going to be a huge challenge for them, literally, because he's about 6'4" and 347 pounds. So that is tough. They even drop him back in coverage. He has 3.5 sacks. He's an excellent football player. They also have Shaq Barrett, a good speed rusher. This is going to be a tough game. This is not a cakewalk at all. They have Mike Evans. It just depends which Baker Mayfield shows up. Sometimes there's good Baker and sometimes there's bad Baker.
I like that breakdown. So, Aaron, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you, what you got cooking, and anything you'd like to
Yeah,
promote?
thank you. I work for KPRC NBC Houston. We're at www.click2houston.com. I am on social media. I always call it Twitter, even though it's X now. And I'm at Aaron Wilson _NFL. I'm on Instagram at Aaron Wilson 7128. And I am a new partner of Underdog Fantasy. Use the code Wilson, all block letters, WILSON, and play the game. And they match up to 100% of if you up to $500 for play. So it's a fun daily fantasy site, very quick rising company, and I partnered with them last week, and I'm excited about it. And I'm also a podcaster like you guys, but the podcast community, we got to stick together. So I thought it was only right to go on your show, and I appreciate you having me on. I podcast with Jake Assman. We use the StreamYard app too, and we're on YouTube, the Inside the Texans podcast. And it's really, other than 790, I'd be remiss not to mention those guys. Great guys over there. Frequent guest and contributor for iHeart, Sports Talk 790, home of the Astros and the Rockets and the Cougs.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate your breakdown. I'm sure this is going to actually calm a little bit of the timeline, and we're going to get to some game previews.
This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown. We not trying to go for 3. And it's best if you get up out the street, cause them bulls out the pen and they about to stampede.
Crenshaw, what's up, buddy?
What's the deal?
Well, we're getting into some previews. We got the Texans news. I wanted to get that out there so everyone understands what's going on. But let's find out. Let's talk about the Panthers stuff, because obviously this is breaking hearts and minds right now. People are saying everything from fire Bobby Slowik to what's going on with CJ. Let's just get down to the nitty gritty. Let's start with the O-line. How do you think the O-line performed, and do you think that there should be any changes? You heard what Aaron had to say about Titus and the rest of the crew. What are your thoughts about the O-line?
Well, earlier when you said that trade that Jags made, you wish would have made it, and Aaron said, well, maybe they didn't think he was that good. I thought the guy was pretty solid, but I think the O-line should stay intact where it's at. We got Dieter at center, so we got to see how he play a full game at that position. But the O-line's got to get better. Titus and Tonsil both said we will be better next week, but I think the pass rush from the Bucs is better than the pass rush from the Panthers. So it's going to be tough. They just got to get better, give CJ more time. I think we got to dial up the plays a little bit more better since they want to take away the middle of the field. We got to stretch it down the field with Tank. I think Tank should touch the ball 10 plus times a game. I mean, these jet sweeps is fine, but target this guy and get him out in space, and that'll help the O-line as well.
So, all right. So you talked about Tank, and so that gives an opening here to answer these questions about they're not throwing Mechie the ball. So, obviously, this isn't. Perhaps I could have asked this to Aaron, but this is just my 2 cents about it, right? They've given Mechie about 1 or 2 targets a game, except when he hasn't seen any. He hasn't been on the field a ton. Now, everyone knows that he had to beat cancer in order just to come back to play football. He also tore his ACL before, and then he had a hamstring injury. And it's my guess at this point that they're basically trying to slow roll Mechie because of the multiple amount of medical issues that he had. And so he's not 100 up to speed. They're getting him up to NFL speed, and potentially Mechie will be a threat next year. But it's already past the bye. And if this was an issue where they wanted to wait until the bye to get him the ball, it would have been done already. It's obvious that he's not going to be looked at as a major threat in this offense this year. That doesn't mean it doesn't change next year, but as of now, the way that I'm looking at it is that he is not a threat. All right, so let's talk. We talked about the O-line, but one thing I wanted to stress is that this was the second fastest that Stroud was forced to throw of any game besides the Steelers. So the Steelers, he threw about 2.5 seconds. This is about 2.6, second fastest of any game. Patterson, although he did overperform admirably, this game it just wasn't great. Obviously he was going up against a tough D line, and we're going up against a hard D line up this game. One of the things that Aaron said, which is also a DJ Bienemy said, and a few others that have been watching the film and commenting, is that the center of the field has been taken away by the defense, and slowly defenses have been adjusting to the Texans, and that's not just true for this game. That's true for the past couple games. We saw that we had 4 batted passes plus the one at the 2-point conversion, and so there are folks that are saying they should just throw the ball more. But if you go down and look at it, in my opinion, they tried to use the screen game. They tried to throw short passes over center. They tried to throw deep over center, and then they tried to throw on the right and the left sideline. The only one that really hit was Noah Brown, a 31-yarder that was tipped by a DB. I don't remember who it was. And Noah Brown actually stepped out, and luckily, because it was tipped, he was able to catch it. That tip could have also been an interception. That was, so that was also just dumb luck, frankly. But CJ missed Nico 2 times. So I want to ask you, what do you think overall of the talk of just give CJ the ball? Do you think CJ had a good performance yesterday or on Sunday? And do you think that they should have just given CJ the ball, given the fact that they actually tried to give him the ball and he just wasn't connected with his receivers?
Well, you know me, I'm with the keep passing, pass that bitch. I get that you gotta be balanced, but I'm with past that motherfucker, man. His performance was okay, from him being a rookie and what he had a hostile environment, a team that was hungry, they wanted to win, they wanted bragging rights. This is why we got Bryce number 1, with how we passed on you and everything. So they had their little luck and everything, but pass the ball more. I get it, you're exposing him, but we paying these guys too much money to let them get hit. So protect them, because that's what you guys good at, pass blocking. And then on your John Mitchie earlier, I think they should just sit him for the rest of the season. I just
Really?
yeah, just get him back next year. Let Noah Brown get the reps. See is he's work bringing him back. Let your rookie Xavier let him get the reps and everything. It's not like discrediting him. It's just he's still not 100%. Like you said, the ACL, the cancer. I mean, look at his teammate J-Mo. He's not really getting a lot of reps as well with Detroit, and he didn't have cancer, but he had the same type of injury. So let's sit him out the rest of the year. We still love you. We still rooting for you, and we'll see you in 2024, man.
I will say I don't quite agree. And I'll say why. Jameson Williams in Detroit, one of the reasons they're not throwing the ball is because he has a drop issue. And so I don't really think it's a medical thing. I think it's just performance. They have been trying to get him the ball, but other than like a really awesome touchdown reception, he's been dropping passes left and right. What I will say is that I think that penalties killed the momentum. It gave Bryce 3 first downs. Shaq Mason penalty killed a 22-yard reception, almost quarter of the field. That doesn't kill momentum. So like you're talking about that issue. Plus you had the delay of game penalty, which is contentious because some people believe it should have been a penalty. Regardless, we had 2 penalties on the offense that really killed that momentum. And so I think.
All right, let me stop on the delay of game. Okay, now why didn't they trust our kicker to kick that kick right there, 57 yards? So why they didn't trust him?
So this was discussed. I forget which podcast. I would like to give them credit, but I can't remember. But basically, they went through the analytics and they said that right. So basically, at 50 yards and under, Kaimi does a great job. But after 50, his percentage goes down quite a bit. And so essentially, after 50 yards, he wouldn't have made it, and you would have given him great field position. And so he made the decision that instead of risking and giving them better field position and actually turning up the score, that he would rely on defense.
But the defense was playing pretty good, during that time. So trust your defense. So we still
from the 50-yard line.
I mean, we punted the ball, they went right down the field and kicked the game-winning field goal.
I mean, the thing there is that I think that honestly, on this one, I have to vehemently disagree with you, because if you look and you say, all right, you should just kick it, hindsight's 2022, because you think that the defense was going to get you the ball back. The other thing is, remember, defense on that drive committed multiple penalties where we should have gotten the ball back. So you can't think that, our defense is going to commit penalties and we're not going to see the ball back. If defense did not commit those penalties, we would have had the ball back and we would have a shot to win the game.
Or if they would have stopped them on that 4th and 2, or maybe that 3rd and 12 and they gained 10 yards, those wasn't penalties. So you're right. We had multiple times to win the game, but those wasn't penalties right there.
Yeah, the penalties really, really screwed us. And as Jay said, Kaimi from over 50 yards is pretty much 50-50. And by the way, if you're not following the Moderate Texan on YouTube, you definitely should check that out. Just search for it on YouTube. He does a great show, typically on Fridays. So before we go into the preview, I want to just talk about a couple of cool things. Number one is, my God, Jonathan Gennard. Wrong hand. I can never figure it out. I don't know why. There we go. So Jonathan Gennard had his best game of the season. I think that I think they're going to pay him. Right now, he's got 6 sacks, 2.5 sacks this last game, a QB hit, 3 hurries, 2 tackles. He actually would have gone at pass deflection, but it was pulled back because of a penalty. He lined up his defensive tackle on snap. Perhaps they're going to see him move him around a bit more. I think Gennard has been great this year. People should remember him from the 2021 season, where he had 8 sacks in 12 games. And then he got hurt. And ever since he got hurt, he has been sporadic. And now it seems like he's back. So I just want to give a shout out to Jonathan Gennard, a guy that I believed in since 2021. And Crenshaw, do you have anything to say before we move on to the game preview?
Damn, I do have something to say. It might sound like I'm hating, but it was against Bryce Young, and the whole defense was over pursuing Bryce Young. It's like D'Amico told those guys, "Hey, this the game. Everybody's going to break out." And you notice, over pursue. He stepped up. Over pursue. So, I don't want to discredit him. It was a great game, but it was against Bryce Young. He's been getting sacked all year. So, I mean, okay, Baker Mayfield, does he get sacked a lot? Do you know off the top of your head?
Not as much as freaking Bryce Young, that's for sure.
Okay, do it against Baker Mayfield, okay, but Bryce Young, I mean, everyone having career games against this guy, man. They're getting 5, 6, 7 sacks a game against them. But I mean,
I'll tell you this: there were definitely times so Icky as a left tackle isn't great. I'll give you that. But there were times where they doubled him, right, and he beat those doubles and got to Bryce Young quickly. Not to mention that I didn't even talk about his tackles for losses, right? And that's what's so important, because you're now talking about him being effective in the run game as well as in a pass rush style, right? A pass rush. So that's why I think it's important. But I do agree that he went up against one of the worst left tackles right now in the league. Icky's graded at 34, I think, in a PFF grade in pass blocking. So you're right that he should have beat Icky. But the thing is, he wasn't just going up against Icky a lot. He was double teamed, and he beat those doubles to get after Bryce Young. But it's a valid point.
Yeah, I saw that one play. Somebody still framed it, beat the double and got the sack with the left hand. I mean, that was great. I mean, that was great. But I just want to continue, do it again. But I'm glad that he had the game he had, because he had that bad penalty earlier. So I'm glad that he bounced back, and if that's what it takes every game to get one of those penalties, well, shit, keep doing them then.
So we will move on in a second, but I do want to answer this question. Is Gennard better than Chase Young? No. But what Gennard is better at is his cap hit. His cap hit is going to be lower than Chase Young. Chase Young is likely to be over 20 and potentially 24 to 25. I mean, dude can command a quarter of our free cap space next year if we would have traded for him. So the thing is that the trade itself, people think it's a 3rd round pick. I get it. It's a 3rd round pick. But what are we doing with that 3rd round pick? We are trying to get to the playoffs. We're not necessarily a Super Bowl team. So what will that 3rd pick get you? Now we have to get him, and then we have to decide to pay him 20 to 25 million. That's a lot. The people do have to remember that we are not competing for a Super Bowl. We are competing to try to win the division. And making a trade for Chase Young is a very short-term solution to a problem that we honestly don't even have. Our issue is our defensive tackles. It's not our edges. So if we would have gotten Jonathan Allen or something, yeah, that would have made a lot more sense, because then that's a long-term solution, because you need a defensive tackle. But the edges are not the issue. Our edges are actually okay. If we actually had pressure up the middle, you would see Will Anderson get a hell of a lot more sacks, and you would see Gennard get a hell of a lot more sacks. But all right, so that's enough about the Panthers.
Well, hold on. I got a question about the D-line. See, we're talking about the D-line, edges, and all that. What changed this year from last year in our run defense? Why the run defense is like so much better this year than last year?
One of the things that makes it better, in my opinion, is that we have pieces, right? So Will Anderson is a piece. I understand some people don't realize that because he's not hitting sacks, but he's putting up a ton of pressure. Number two is that the run defense is working. So the run defense is actually, a lot of it is Will and Jonathan Gennard. Both of them are actually hitting, setting the edge. So a lot of the thing is, everyone always thinks of edges as dudes that need to just get after the quarterback. What they don't understand is, what is an edge primary job? Set the edge. That's their primary job. Their primary job is to set the edge so you can stop the run. Pass rushing typically, actually, a lot of times, was a defensive tackle type of situation, and then the edges was secondary. That's kind of changed over the years, but people still think that edges, get off the quarterback, get off the quarterback, get off the quarterback, and it is now. But you have to remember what their other job is. The run defense between Jonathan Gennard, Jerry Hughes, who when he plays in, and Will Anderson, has been incredibly well. And that has been one of the biggest difference in the defense, because before we let everyone run all over us. And now we're actually freaking great when it comes to stopping the run. That's one of the biggest differences right now. Oh, and I will agree with Jay right too. We have better linebacker play with Cashman, one of the best linebackers in the AFC, got the AFC defensive award 2 weeks ago. And we also have Henry To'oTo'o playing better. So I mean, Perryman honestly hasn't been that great. He's been on and off. I'm not even.
It was good last game.
I mean, overall, he hasn't been that great. So I will say that's also true with the linebackers. Coaching, definitely. Obviously, you have coaching there. You have better linebackers. This is all true. So now let's get into actually the preview for the Bucs game. So let's start with the injuries. So on our side, we already talked about the injuries on the Texans side, so we're not going to talk about that anymore. What we will talk about, though, are the actual injuries on the Bucs side. So Tristan Wirfs, who is obviously the threat on the tackle side for them, and Logan Hall, the edge opposite side of Shaquille Barrett. They were both limited in practice. So far, it seems like Tristan Wirfs will probably play. The questionable thing is Logan Hall. We don't know. We'll find out pretty soon. So where do we think is going to happen? So the Bucs are the 30th ranked team in rush yards. We know that, like, they don't run the ball often. When they do, they're okay, but they don't run the ball that much. They're worse than running than us. Right. So that's not the biggest threat. They're 27th ranked team in points scored. All right. I just want to be able to show people just a little bit of information to say, like, it's going to be a tough matchup. Don't get me wrong, but it's still a winnable game. All right. Tampa is allowing 354 yards per game. Houston's allowing 334. We're pretty similar when it comes there because of the type of defenses and stuff that we run. We actually allow a lot of yards. So do they, because we do play a lot of zone here. Tampa is 29th in points per game at 121 total. And Houston is 21 at 148. So, we're allowing, we are putting up more points overall. And before I just keep running stats, this is the two last ones, and then I want to get your take, and then we'll move on, is from a PFF standpoint, the Texans are ranked as a 12th ranked offense, the 19th ranked defense, and the 21st in terms of special teams. Tampa is ranked as the 18th ranked offense, the 24th ranked defense, and the 32nd in special teams. So now, Crenshaw, with all that, I want to know where you stand, where you think, how do you see this game going? I don't want to get just a prediction. I want you to tell me, like, how do you see the game actually going through all four quarters?
Well, the Panthers was last in this, 25th in this, 27 in that, but Sunday we couldn't tell. So I mean, all we can do is keep stopping the run, but their wide receiver play is really, really good, and that's what I'm concerned at. I don't know if Nelson is will hold Evans or would we hold Godwin. I'm not for sure on that. I just hope on our end we could get our run game going, with Boone and Singletary since Pierce is not going to play and everything. It's going to be a tough matchup. Um, it's really a coin flip, man. It's one of them games like whoever had the ball last in the last 2 minutes is going to win the game. That's like a quick take on it. Because I mean, both teams are very, very, very similar. It's just we have a better quarterback play, but they got a better overall team as far as skill guys that people would know.
I think I agree with you there. I mean, we're really similar. I do think we have a better quarterback, and I think a lot of it matters with what happens with Vita Vea. Um, are we able to take care of him? Because Vita Vea is our game wrecker. So let's talk about game wreckers just a little bit. So Vita Vea, he's an inside D lineman. He's ranked as the 11th best D lineman in the league. Shaquille Barrett is ranked as a 23rd ranked edge. The stats are below if you're curious there. And so Vita Vea could potentially make this look like a Panthers D line of just batting down passes, and obviously with the center like Michael Dieter, who really didn't get a chance to play center a lot in Miami because he was not great. He played center and he was like a mid center. Then he had a year where he didn't play a single snap on offense. All he did was play on special team. Then he comes over here and he plays backup here and there. Now we're having him start as center. And so Michael Dieter isn't the guy necessarily that you want to be able to go after someone like a Vita Vea, but that is the case. So what I think really happens here is you got to look at O-line play. If we're able to hold off, and this comes down to scheming, can we protect CG the way that we protected him during the Steelers game? And when I'm saying protecting him, I'm not just talking about sacks. I'm talking about letting him get the ball out. Last game, like I said, he had to get the ball in 2.6 seconds. He usually has 3 to 3.3 seconds. So he just didn't have enough time, and that's why he wasn't able to connect. He was just under pressure quite a bit. So my thing is O-line play is going to be critical with a center that hasn't showed up so far. That is my biggest concern. What's your biggest concern, Crenshaw?
I'm right with you. I'm right with you. After the Saints game, I was like, well, we play the Steelers, we play the Saints. I don't think we're gonna play a good defense until we play the Browns. So I'm like, okay, we should be good. But then boom, the Panthers, brought me back to reality. Um, like Jay said, Slowik was able to scheme the Steelers, the Falcons, and the Saints. But if we look like we look against the Panthers, against the Bucs, then Bobby got to do something different because now they get into the passing lanes. Now they taking away all the things that we was doing great at when we was putting up points. I am concerned about Vita because he's been wrecking shit since he was a rookie. I hope we can find something like that next year in the draft. But I think we need to move CJ out to the pocket more, and I think he might need to use his legs more this game as well to keep those guys off balance because he shouldn't. Well, how many passes he got batted down? 5, 6 last game.
It was 5 total if you count the 2-point conversion. If you don't, which they don't necessarily on the stat sheet, then it's 4.
Yeah, that's unacceptable for a quarterback, especially at his height and everything. So I think they need to move him out of the pocket more, do some things that maybe he's not comfortable with, or maybe he is comfortable with, and I think that'll keep them guessing. And you got to watch out for Devin White as well, man. He's a good linebacker. Isn't he a free agent coming up next year?
I honestly don't know off the top of my head, but he very well might be.
Okay, because he could be showcasing for us maybe.
So let's just talk about the two different quarterbacks. So CJ Stroud by PFF is a 17th ranked quarterback, 1,800 yards, 9 TDs, 1 interception, 94.9 passer rating. Baker Mayfield, the 13th ranked quarterback, 1,600 yards, 10 TDs, 4 interceptions, and 89.5 passer rating. And so I think what you can do here, if you can keep him upright and not just, again, sacks are one thing, and then the number two thing is letting him get the ball out of center. They've been taking that away, and as I mentioned, and as Aaron Wilson mentioned, as you mentioned, they are taking away the center. So now Bobby Slowik has to scheme up plays where he can go out to the left and the right. They also took away the short pass game in the Panthers game. That was the issue there, right? So he has to find a way of getting, whether it's using Tank, whether it's using Michael Boone, getting the short pass game into playmakers. That's one of the things that they can do. So there are different ways of moving the ball. Now, run game. The run game was not solid because of O-line play. We keep talking about O-line. How can we facilitate that run game? In my opinion, you use the short pass game as an extension of the run. And that's what you do. So you take a Micah Boone, you take Singletary. We don't know if Dameon Pierce is out, but he's questionable, probably won't play. So you use your running backs, but you put them in you have screens. You put them in a position where they can run the ball, and even if the O-line is not opening them up, essentially just put the ball in the hands of your playmakers. And yes, that means Tank. Yes, that means Xavier Hutchinson. But yes, it also means Michael Boone and Devin Singletary. Crenshaw, how do you think they can actually move the ball on the ground?
Just what you said. Now, this might be doing too much, but is it possible to have both guys in the backfield? Give the defense a look they ain't seen all year on film.
Of course, you can have two backs, but then you have to, only have one tight end.
I know they're gonna free blitzer and everything, but get it out fast. We need to use the outside more, or just fuck it, just run the ball down their throats. I mean, just do something. You just can't be doing the same thing that you've been doing or whatnot. But I would still think the pass should set up the run. They say the run set up the pass, and like the little clip you talked about earlier in the week, how 2 yards here, 2 yards here, boom, 75 yards down the field. But I think in our case, we got a pass to set up the run. So I like the quick screen passes, and that helps CJ numbers as well.
All right. So we've talked about the quarterbacks. We talked about the run game. We've talked about the game wreckers. I want us to talk about special teams because no one talks about special teams, but I'm going to here. Last game, we had Cameron Johnson, who punted 6 times. 4 were inside the 20-yard line, and he kicked a franchise record 74-yard punt. Our special teams has been immaculate. So we need an all-phase game here. Let me see if I can find Jay's point here. All right. So here's the thing. Jay said also last game is not the norm in our play. We haven't had a complete game since probably the Steelers game. We need a complete game. We know that we have deficiencies on the O-line. We know we have deficiencies running the ball, but we need to run the ball. You know what happens when you have those deficiencies? You have to have other phases make up for it, whether that's a defense or here, special teams. So we know that special teams has been doing their job. They were honestly the best phase last game. And I know people will say, what? We had 6 sacks. Yeah, special teams, I'm going to give you. If we won the game, I would have given it to Cameron Johnston. But I can't give him the ball because we lost the game. But I will say that special teams needs to actually help us out again. And he needs to pin them back. And he needs to make sure that we are giving our defense every single chance of getting them a 3-and-out so we can get the ball back. That's what I want to just say. Special teams is going to be quite important here.
A blur.
So Crenshaw, let's get into the game predictions. What's your prediction? Do we win? Do we lose? Any other thoughts on how we can win? And you want to roll that into your game prediction?
Well, my original prediction, I had us to win this game, and I'm going to stick with it, having us to win this game. I think it's going to be a bounce-back game. CJ hate losing. I'm pretty sure he been looking at film, talked to Bobby, hey, we need to do this, we need to do that. So if we play like we played when we was winning, we'll win this game right here. So my score prediction in this game at home, we usually score some pretty good points. So I will give us, I'm still keep it close because I'm going to respect Tampa Bay, 24-21.
Okay. So I have been debating this all week. And obviously, before the show, when I come up with all the analytics, I go through the analytics. I typically watch highlights, not necessarily full games, but I watch the highlights of Tampa. And I was leaning towards a loss. And let me tell you why I'm kind of shifting there. And I'll explain it. So first of all, we are at home. That is definitely going to be a factor. I think that being at home games honestly give us a little bit of an edge where we didn't have that at all last year. I'm not saying that's going to be a 70% just Texans fans, but I do think that gives us a significant edge. So I do think having a home game helps. I also think that CJ's pissed the fuck off, and he is, and you can see him in the press conference where he is literally going to put his life on the line to win this game. And I hope you understand. I'm being hyperbolic, but you know what I mean. He will literally do whatever it takes to win this game. When someone said someone has to want it more, CJ wants this more. See, if you've seen the press conferences, he's disgusted with himself. Not the team. He's disgusted with himself. He knows he didn't have the best game, but he also knows that he can make the throws most of the time. He had a bad game in Carolina. And he had a bad game against the dude that everyone said was better than him. He's pissed, and he wants to prove everyone wrong. So I think that he is going to be not just be stellar, but he's going to be sitting down with Bobby and D'Amico, and he's going to want to be able to be more involved. Now, obviously, he's a rookie, so he's not going to be as involved in the game plan as, say, a Tom Brady type figure. But I do think that they've already started talking together as a team and seeing how they can fix what the defense is taking away and how he can actually get more involved. And the times where he missed Nico, why did he miss those? It's typically because of O-line failures, but that's on him still, because even though the O-line fails, you have to be able to make that play out of structure. And I think he realizes all of this. So at the end of the day, I'm saying we do win, but it's a close game. I don't think any team scores 20 points. I think it's going to be 17-14 Texans win.
He's 0-2 versus Bryce. Wow.
All right. So that's what I have to say on the prediction. So before we wrap this up, Crenshaw, why don't you tell everyone where we can find you at and what you got cooking?
Well, first of all, I don't wrap up anything. I go raw. And you can find me at Fifth Ward Crenshaw everywhere.
Awesome. And guys, we have actually an episode tomorrow. Yes, a Thursday episode. We have a great guest, the Aaron Schatz. He's actually the guy that actually developed DVOA. So if you're an analytic freak like me, you're going to love this episode. We'll be talking Texans, of course, but we'll also be talking about some of the analytics, how he developed DVOA, and what analytics can tell us. So tune into that tomorrow. If you don't have time during the day, you can obviously check us out later on YouTube, but make sure you subscribe. You can find me, Brown Chubby Bear, everywhere. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. And I'll love to talk Texans. I'm in a space probably 3-4 times a week. So come and find me. Other than that, man, let's win this game. And I got to say, man, I still think we're playoff bound. Yep, I'm still saying it. I still think we're playoff bound. But if we don't win this game, I might change my tune. So let's go. Let's go Texans.
This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown. We not trying to go for 3. And it's best if you get up out the street, cause them bulls out the pen and they about to stampede.